Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Ashala Yardley's YouTube channel. And once again, I have my dear friend, ally, co-conspirator in creating digital sovereignty and helping free us from this, what feels like some kind of impending rollout of AI and control. And I know we have in our community lots of opinions about this. So what I'd like to do is invite David. He's put together a phenomenal presentation. He's spent a long time gathering this evidence and research to support his hypothesis about where we're at, where this is going potentially, what kind of really powerful decisions are right in front of us going forward, some ways that we can maybe slow this process down long enough so that we can think very clearly about how we want to navigate integrating AI into our lives. So without further ado, welcome back, David.
Thank you, Ashala. It's great to be back. And just before we start, so as Ashala's already said, this is part 2. There could possibly be a part 3 and even maybe a part 4. I think maybe what we're going to try and do this time is maybe try to keep it down to like 45 minutes or less than an hour, because we went for an hour and a half last time. And this is a very, very heavy subject. And yeah, it's going to be information overload even at that point, let alone an hour and a half. So we did lose some people last time because of that, because it's a bit much, especially if you don't know much about technology. But what we're going to do today, we're going to try and keep it as simple as possible for the audience. Okay. And I think if Ashala has time, she's a flat out lady, but if she has time, there'll be a repost of part 1 and also a repost of this video where we'll have timestamps where you can jump to exactly what interests you. You don't have to go through the whole lot if you don't feel like it.
Yeah, that sounds great, David. Thank you so much. And, you know, like really, this is a very big topic and you have done so much research and I honor and respect that. And I'd love to take as much time as is needed to like give this information to our audience in these digestible pieces. So I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah, no, and I hope you do, because we're here for the audience, not for ourselves.
Yeah,
we've been trying to do our best to help you guys. And that's another thing, like in version 1 of this video, part 1 of this video, and we'll most probably have the same links in this video and upcoming videos as well. Yeah. I do have tutorials on how to, free tutorials on how to keep your computer safe. Okay, so so there are some tutorials on how to remove AI and from your Windows computer, and also how to keep your Windows computer safe from viruses and adware.
So fantastic, David. Thank you for putting that together. Those tutorials are amazing.
As well. So,
and what I want to say too is that, you know, if you get into the weeds in these tutorials where you're doing all the things and it's not working, David is available to do online consultation as well. And you can find a link to book sessions with him. His prices are reasonable and he'll obviously work with people all over the world in terms of just providing guidance on how to troubleshoot if you're getting into this process and going, yeah, I'm you know, basically wanting to create cybersecurity on my computer and my devices, and walk me through that. So if you check, the links are all below this video from what we had with part 1. And if you haven't watched part 1, I highly recommend you going back. As I said, we're going to aim to get some timestamps on there so you can just go into the section that is really interesting to you, because he's just basically laying out the ground floor of digital security. Where we're going today is next level. And it was spurred on, I believe, if I'm right, David, by your observation of what you told me was one of the more shocking things you've seen in all your decades of working with tech, which is something embedded in a small subsection the Beautifl, what's it called? The big beautiful bill.
It's the big beautiful bill. It's a bit like the Patriot Act. It's anything but patriotic, and this is anything but beautiful, unfortunately, especially when it comes to this section. The other parts, I think there's a lot of misinformation about what they're going to be doing with Medicaid and cutting food stamps and stuff. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as bad as what it's like many in the media are saying. But this subsection, which is section 43201 of the Big Beautiful Bill, and in particular subsection C, is quite horrific.
That, can you put it up on the screen and show it to us?
I've got it.
Oh yeah, I'll share the screen
on the
here.
stage right now. Now this is how it looked a few days ago. So, and you can see they've got a nice big red arrow pointing to subsection C, which states that no state or political subdivision may enforce any law or regulation regulating artificial intelligence models for a 10-year period, beginning on the date of the commencement of the enactment of the Act. So this has already gone through the House. It's yet to go. It's yet to be put forward to the Senate. But obviously, there was a bit of an uproar over this, over the people.
You just repeat in common language what they're actually saying there.
What they're saying is states and states, counties, and cities cannot enact any laws that ban the use of artificial intelligence for 10 years.
Okay.
So that
and how is this shocking to you? What did that signal to you? Like, what was that? What was your response?
Well, what was shocking to me about this, and I suppose I need to recap from part one, what that was really all about, because I didn't really state the most obvious part of it, restated enough to make it obvious to our audience. And what that is like what we're talking about here is heavy duty surveillance. We've already had it quite a bit with ads and how they're tracking us and stuff. And I gave a few examples in part one of that. Artificial intelligence, the way it works, it has to surveil everything. All right. And it's going to need to surveil a lot more than what ads are currently doing with us. So, it's like people can't even have a conversation these days without, seeing ads for what they're talking about 5 minutes later. And with surveillance, it's like this huge, with artificial intelligence, there's huge privacy issues.
Okay.
And this bill pretty much confirms my fears about which way this is going. So it's like it's a bit of there's a lot more of being. What's the right way to put this? What I was talking about before could be considered a conspiracy theory when I was talking about it in part one. Now it's actually a reality. So that is quite scary to me. And yeah, so surveillance.
So basically, what this bill is saying then is that if people have an issue with the role that AI is given and the freedoms it's given to, look into all aspects of our lives and surveil us, there's no way to stop that. There's no way what does it say? The state cannot.
Well, they can't stop it. That it's not just surveillance, but surveillance to me is the worst part of it, of how AI works. And what the audience really needs to understand about surveillance is like, it's not so much about whether you have anything to hide or not. It's whether you trust people that you don't know with your information. Okay, so you don't know whether they have good intent or bad intent. And if they have bad intent, so a good example of this is like a domestic violence situation. Okay, so you've got someone who has a spouse, and that spouse is stalking them and trying to find out where they live so they can throw eggs at the windows or do something a lot worse than that. It's like so in that situation, the person that's being attacked needs to have some privacy. Okay, they don't want to have like the charity that might be helping them with their domestic violence situation telling their spouse where their new house is, and it's like and what their new job is and what their phone number is and all that sort of stuff. That information needs to be kept private. So there's lots of reasons why privacy is so important, but we can extrapolate that out further to like a government that doesn't have their best interests in heart, okay, or corporation doesn't have best interests in heart. That's why we don't want to have too much surveillance, and while we need to have a right to privacy to protect ourselves from governments or corporations that are not it's like doing the right thing with our information, and also doing it without our permission.
Thank you. So you were saying, David, that you observed it. Now, this was a bit over a week ago, I believe, the first time you sent me this caption with the arrow there. And
so if we have a look at this tweet, it's on May 24th.
What was that? Sorry.
May 24th is when this tweet was tweeted out. It's actually changed a bit. It's actually gotten worse. But I'll get into that in a minute.
Okay, so since then it has been altered. And basically they've gone in and changed the wording. Is that correct?
That is correct. And this is a constant pattern I've been seeing with the tech industry over the past year and a half. So anything really nasty they've done, it's like when the public finds out about it, they'll walk it back a little bit. They'll tone the language down and make it look nowhere near as bad as what it initially looked. And this is just another example of that. But what I might do is I might just, let's see, do I have the bill here? I actually have a link to the original bill. So I'll just see if I can find that.
Yeah. So this is what it says now, or this was the original one?
This is what it used to say. Which,
okay. And what does it say now?
Well, this is what I'm going to bring up now. All right. So there we have. So if we look at the address here, we're looking at congress.gov, which is the website for the U.S. House of Representatives. So we're getting straight from the horse's mouth here. We're not looking at some mainstream media fake story or anything like that. So I'm just going to just go down to page 291 of this, and we'll have a closer look.
Okay.
So just there we go. All right. So what I might do, I might just see if I can make that a bit wider so people can see it a bit better. How's that looking now?
Yep, that looks good.
Yep. Okay. So in a nutshell, there's three parts to this bill. There's Part A, Part B, and Part C. And what we were looking at in the previous screenshot was Part C that was causing concerns.
Okay.
For people, it's like now I'm just going to try and find here's the section that's being changed. Okay. Yeah, the license for A, B, and C has actually changed. But in a nutshell, it's saying that no changes could be made to this law unless it's a new federal law. Okay, which is like under this section here.
Okay.
Okay, or it's in the case of requirement imposed under generally applicable law, and they're not stating whether this is a federal law, a state law, a city law, or a county law. Okay, and what they're pretty much saying in a nutshell here is that law it's like it has to be an existing law or a new law that is similar to one that could be imposed on artificial intelligence, but not one that can be imposed on artificial intelligence directly. So this is actually a lot worse because this is indefinite. Okay, this could be kept in place for a year or 100 years. It's not 10 years like it was stating before. And there's I can't see any way legally where they can come up with an example of existing law that can can be used as something similar to a law banning artificial intelligence.
Because there isn't an existing law?
Because there isn't one. And it's like, and how could you create a new one that, is saying that it's not artificial intelligence that could be imposed on artificial intelligence? It's not really making any sense.
It's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what this bill is also about, it's about the introduction of artificial intelligence into the federal government. And what I'm going to do here, it's like, and what hasn't really been publicized, I'm going to share this tab instead. What hasn't really been publicized is the fact that it's like Elon Musk's Gro AI has already been it's like introduced into the Department of Government Efficiency. Government Efficiency. Sorry for my stuttering. Otherwise known as Doge. And there's a couple of guys here. This guy here, Edward Constantine, and this other guy, Kyle Shute. Both of these gentlemen have introduced and deployed the Grok AI within the Doge infrastructure. So there's currently an AI already within the US federal government that's going through and harvesting and hoovering up information. We've got no idea what it's looking at. It could be looking at information, private information of US citizens, for all we know. We have no idea what it's doing.
Right.
But it's already been deployed, and there's been no oversight on how it's being deployed and what it can do and what it can't do. It's just been given open slather, more or less.
Right.
And that's quite concerning.
Now, I just want to be clear to the audience that we're not saying that we are certain that there's any nefarious intention with these actions. What we're saying is we don't want to start setting any precedents that indicates that it's free game, no holds barred. We're not allowed to question. There's no opportunity to restrict or place restrictions on these whatever licenses to use these technologies in this way. Like, that's what we're saying. What we're saying is not whether or not these particular people in their hands, are they using it for positive purposes? Are they using it to streamline government processes? Is it a white hat operation? That, like, we're not weighing in on.
We don't know.
We don't know, for one. And secondly, we're not weighing in and saying they're for sure using this in a nefarious way. What we're saying is there's no reason to ever set this kind of precedence, because it's like, how do we have any course of action if it does get into the wrong hands down the road, right? Like, we just don't want.
There's no guidelines or structure being put in place on what the AI can and can't do. It's the Wild West.
Yeah.
Okay. So
we were just talking about the Wild West in a positive sense on the Above Below show with Meg and I, and it goes both ways, right? It's the Wild West in terms of, like, this is all new. But the main point we want to come forward with is that this is the time to slow the heck down and look at, like, why do we have to put these kind of caveats in place? Like, that it's untouchable. That just doesn't resonate with my heart. That doesn't feel like aligned to me in integrity.
And like you're saying, it could be a white hat operation, it could be a black coat operation. The problem is we don't know, and we don't know what guidelines have been put in place to. It's like, well, we need some guardrails. It's like, it's like the AI can go in, it can look at every single employee of every federal government department, which is fine. But where does it draw the line? Can it look at DMV, Department of Motor Vehicle information, for example, and get all the information about what everyone's driving in America? And I mean, that's quite benign, but it could possibly be used just like, bring in something else like an electric vehicle law, because they're finding out there's too many people not taking up electric vehicles, or it could be anything. Personal health information. Okay, so it's like that's something that's very sensitive to a lot of people. It's like it's not anybody's business what your personal health information is. So there could be some embarrassing sexual health information, or you just don't want people knowing you've got cancer, for example, because you just want to keep it to yourself. It's just a whole range of issues that it could be.
I'm assuming that, when we're talking about everything being digital and everything being basically computer artificially intelligent, right? Like, there's no way to monitor. There's no accountability. How do we know the system doesn't get hacked? And we can think it's there for a good reason, and next thing you know, it's doing.
That's another thing. I could be completely wrong about everything they've put the guardrails in place. Is not looking at anything that it shouldn't be looking at. Okay, but the way AI is structured right now, it could possibly be hacked by a foreign government, and the information that they think that's coming from Grok is actually coming from China or Russia, for example, and then that subverts their plans, and then everything goes pear-shaped because of that. So that's another thing. There's also a third thing that's been brought up in regards to this bill, which is quite concerning to a lot of people, and that is like we saw in the lead up to the last US federal election, these it's like AI images of Trump being arrested that were completely fake. Like you can see all these like FBI officers tackling him to the ground and all this sort of stuff. And it's like if you didn't know much about AI, I think, oh, geez, they've got Trump. He's been arrested. He's trying to resist arrest, and they've got him, and it's all fake. That sort of information can be used to influence election campaigns. So let's just say you have a state election in Texas, a whole bunch of fake information or videos or images comes out about a particular candidate. The public believes it, and they don't vote for that person because of that.
Yeah.
There's all these other issues as well that needs to be addressed and needs to be addressed in a legal way. Because the states are able to like put in place laws where that becomes illegal, and you can't use AI for advertisement campaigns unless it's clearly stated that AI has been used to create those images or that text or video or whatever. Then that's fine. But right now they can't do that.
Yeah. So, David, would it be okay? I know you have this section in here, a quick and brief overview of how AI trains itself. It is pretty heady, this stuff. Would it be okay if we jumped onto the need for improved security for domain and local? Oh, right. Okay. That I'm like,
it's a bit heavy. So I don't know whether we
how
should
about
get
if
into
we
that
go
today.
to the rise of confidential computing as an interim solution? Because what I'm hearing when I've spoken with you in the past about this is really what we want to do is it's not about going in and dismantling all of this stuff. It's impossible. It's up there. It's going to happen. But what we want to do, we just want to, we just want to, sorry, we just want to slow it down, and we want to make sure that we don't just acquiesce and let them steamroller over us with all of these, like, you basically signing away our freedoms, our human rights, right? Like our rights to sovereignty and privacy and so on. So I feel like, can we go into how we slow this down? How can we slow it down?
Yeah. And I'd just like to add, it's like we're never going to be able to completely stop AI. The cat's out of the bag, and we're in an AI arms race with other countries around the world. It's like to completely just stop AI in its tracks is not an option. But what we can do is we can be a lot more careful on how we deploy it. So a lot of the stuff I'm talking about here should be applied to federal government departments at the very least. Okay, if not to corporations and individuals. That would make it harder for AI to work if it couldn't easily find out as much as it can about what's going on with humanity. But yeah, it's like, as we said in part one, there's like one thing that's already a fact is like what's his name? The guy that used to own Jack Dorsey. He used to own Twitter. He put a tweet out on what's now called X that he used to own, and he talked about banning intellectual property laws completely because it's like as we also said in the previous videos, like there's a high-level engineer at OpenAI who blew the whistle on how copyright's being breached and how he had concerns about it. So what they're doing is they're looking at copyrighted information without paying the owners to look at that information, and it's just it's just getting way too much.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so
So
Um,
let's go to that. What is confidential computing?
yes. So before we start on that, there's two ways we can go about solving this problem. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
there's something that's quite a common term that's used in the cybersecurity industry, and that term is like security by design, not by policy. All
Okay.
right. So that's important. So if all of this gets too much for you, because we are getting into the technicalities quite a bit, I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. But if it's not too much, what you really need to keep in mind is like what we're talking about here is security by design, not by policy. And what that means is, let's just say Ashala is using a product of mine. I've got like a home-based cloud computing service where she can have a host of very own iCloud within her own house, and it's not owned by anyone except herself. I could have it set up to be secure by design, or I could try to just have a policy in place, just promising Ashala, I won't look at any of your stuff. Okay, I promise not to look at your stuff, and just to hope that I keep up that promise. That's policy. Okay, that's really bad. Okay, you don't want to just trust someone's word for it. I just take my word. Trust me, trust me. Okay, you don't want to be in that situation. What you want to be is in a situation where Ashala asks, well, David, can you see my stuff on my little home version of my very own iCloud? And if I turn and say, look, I can't, even if I want to, because it's encrypted. Okay,
Okay.
so it's
That's
secure by
big, folks.
design.
There it is right there. Like what we can do, we have the ability to do this. I understand that these kind of things are not only being discouraged, but perhaps even tracked. But let's talk about how people can learn more about this and possibly take steps to go in that direction.
So that's the whole idea where I'm going to be going with confidential computing today. And when that's applied in an artificial intelligence sense, it's called confidential AI.
Okay.
But what that means in a nutshell is like, my AI can't see or expose any personal information of yours, even if I wanted to, because it's secure by design. I'm not putting a legal policy in place stating, oh, it's like I promise that no one can see your stuff, or that I won't do anything nasty with that stuff. Um, it's secure by design. Okay, so but first, before we get into it's like confidential computing, I think what we need to do is just try and give our audience a rundown of how artificial intelligence works. So I don't know, it's like how many people are in the audience right now, but it'd be nice if we started seeing some comments, especially some questions. So if there's anything I'm bringing up, it's like, well, what the heck does an enclave mean, for example? So that's something I might bring up, and if that terminology doesn't make any sense, please don't be afraid to ask questions. And Ashala, if she notices them, she'll put them up, and we'll try to answer them, because there's a good chance that that question you're asking will be the same question other people in the audience will have in their heads and want to have answered.
And don't worry, David, I'll ask you lots of questions.
Oh, good, thank you. Because that's another thing. That's what I try to do quite often in my job, is just try to explain things in layman terms. Because when people are deep in an industry, it's very easy to like use all these big words that don't mean
Yeah.
anything. Like, what the heck is a large language model? Which is where we're going to start now.
Okay.
Okay, so in layman terms, what a large language model is, it's an artificial intelligence that trains itself on pretty much every single piece of information they can grab from everywhere, especially the internet. Okay, so and that's where the copyright issues are getting, it's like out of control, because it's so let's just say I want to create an image in AI. Okay, and let's say I want to create an image of Superman. It's like what this AI will do. It'll come out and also it'll go around and look at a whole bunch of like Superman movies and cartoons and stuff like that, and it'll generate an image based off of what it's seen with that. So it's going to be not a completely unique image. It's going to be something that's similar to what it's been able to find, but different enough that I couldn't be sued for copyright if I decided to use that image myself.
And same with everything else. Like if someone writes books on a subject, if they have their own teaching around things, their own stories with stuff, those things can get grabbed from a lot of different places, melded together in a new way. And it looks like new information, or it looks like a recycled hodgepodge of a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, and sometimes it can be very, very well done. Sometimes, well, this is another thing that people are quite scared of, especially artists, because they thought, oh, it's like, once we have this new high tech world, artists will be in high demand because we'll have plenty of time to, like, make the world more beautiful and things like that. But now they're looking at AI and it's like, oh my God, I can't sell my art anymore because people are putting out this AI generated art and I can't compete with it because it's so good.
It's very sad. That's very
Yeah.
sad.
But
Yeah.
just a bit more on large language models. The reason why they call it a language model is because what it's doing is it's operating off what's called a prompt. So when you're using AI, you ask it a question, which is called a
Yes.
prompt. So earlier before I was talking about, it's like, give me a picture that's like, looks like Superman. That's a prompt. Okay,
Yes.
and then what it'll do is, like, it'll go through. It's like it'll look at the language I've used and it's like Superman image, and then it'll start going through and looking at all the Superman images. Another prompt I could say was like, give me an image of a purple skinless cat. All right, and then what it'll do is like it'll look and see what purple means. Okay, it'll have an idea what purple means. Then it'll go into the animal language model, and then it'll go into the subcategories of the language model for cats, and then it'll go into a further subcategory of cats for skinless cats. Okay, and then apply the color purple to a representation of a skinless cat.
Okay.
So that's why it's called a language model. Okay, and the model, when they talk about a model, they're talking about a huge database full of information.
Right.
Okay, and there's a bit more to it than just the language model itself. There's machine learning that's put in place. So not only is it trying to answer your question, it's also learning from the data it currently has in its system, and it's also learning from the prompts that I'm putting into it.
So it's storing all of that information.
Well, not only is it just storing with it, it's learning from it. So it's that's when you get into the field of generative AI, where it creates that Superman image or that skinless cat image that I was talking about. Okay, it's generating something completely new, and it's learning how to do that. It's also learning from our own behavior as well, how humanity itself works. There's something called natural language processing. So it could be a different situation. It could be asking a question about politics or religion or science or something like that, and that could be giving me a text-based response instead of an image-based response. And when it gives me that response, it sends that response in a way that's like I'm talking to you. Okay, it's like, it's not dry information. It's like it'll be like I'm talking to this really cool person with a nice personality that's explaining things to me in a way that's easy for me to understand. So it's more than just a storage of information. It's like it's not intelligent in the way that a human is intelligent. Okay, but it can learn in a way. So
yes, it's learning the nuance of also what is getting a positive response, right? Like
that's
it's
exactly right.
nuance
That's
based on the
a really good way
feedback.
to put it. Yeah. Yeah, so it's also learning how to give better responses, and that's another reason why AI, even when it works well, it's like it's tricky. So you can ask the same question twice and get two different responses, and sometimes that can be quite different. And the AI will be watching to see which response seems to be getting the best results. Okay, because if you're not happy with the results, you'll prompt the AI even further. Okay. And that's another example of why it needs to learn.
It's just wild. I mean, from a sociological perspective, this is like massively, like this is part of my concern, right? It's like in the beginning, it's great. It can be very much like opening people's minds, opening their eyes, giving them a greater perspective on reality, more compassion, teaching them about the human experience and so many things, right? It has the capacity to be such a great educator and trainer in some ways for humanity. But oh boy, I mean, if it can monitor our feedback, which of course we know it does because it watches our spending habits and our like what we pay attention to and so on. Like,
Yeah.
it's then so easy if you wanted to create programming to start steering humanity's version of reality and give us a,
And that's an important point,
like,
Ashala, because
from
right
a
now,
sociological perspective, this is a nightmare because it basically understands us better than we know ourselves.
that's exactly right, and that already was happening before I came along with the ad networks that are harvesting information about us. They don't even need to know your name or your address. They can create such a strong image of you that they'd actually know you better than yourselves. And if that information is also put out to governments, then and with AI, it's going to be even worse. So it's quite scary.
It is. It
Very
really
scary.
is. It
And I
definitely.
think another thing that's really really scary about this. I mean, it's like I don't have anything against anyone using AI. I use it occasionally myself, but I think the real danger here for humanity, apart from the privacy issues and the ability to fake a lot of stuff, is is to become overly reliant on it to the point that we can't think ourselves anymore. And
Yeah.
that's the big danger. It's like we don't want. It's already bad enough as it is. So as I was saying to you before, it's like kids aren't even being taught how to write in cursive anymore in school, and
Mhm.
that's a very important skill if you're handwriting. So if you're writing a long letter to, like a friend or a business or whatever,
Mhm.
being able to write in cursive is so much more productive than just writing in block letters. But that skill is gone, and yeah, and other skills are going to fall by the wayside once AI becomes more popular, and also jobs are going to be lost as well, which
Yeah.
it's like it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a growing body of evidence that we're heading into very tricky territory. And interesting, Meg and I in our Above Below show just an hour and a bit ago, we were seeing the magic date of around 2030 as being a time where there would be a real dividing of the ways, and some people would just go happily, merrily down the
Yeah,
AI train and be like, yeah,
yeah. I'll
just,
just get a chip put in my head and have a
yep,
Neuralink chip from Elon
exactly.
Musk, and then ask me questions, like I'll get the answer in my head straight away.
Yeah,
And what,
yeah, and all of it, right? Like it just goes crazier and crazier and weirder and weirder. And what I keep saying to people is, even if it is amazing in the beginning, guess what, folks? It's always been this way throughout history. You get all the goods up front, but slowly they start retracting them. And eventually you're just dumbed down, dumbed down, dumbed down, and you don't even know how to think for yourself anymore. So definitely a big pivotal moment here for humanity on planet Earth.
yeah,
And that there will be a lot of people that just go, you know what? Forget it. We've got our own like massive spiritual technology that's turning on at the same time, where we
yeah,
just know stuff. You and I can have telepathic communication. I know it sounds outlandish, but I've experienced this in my lifetime. Many times I've telepathically communicated with animals, with other humans. I've received
yeah.
messages, full
I
downloads.
think a lot of people in the audience would have done that too. It's like they just might
Yeah,
want to admit it to themselves,
I've
but
been
I've
able
definitely done
to literally download, like sometimes I've had systems downloaded where I could pretty much write a book on a subject within like 24 hours. So this is not that far-fetched. And I think there will come a point, and what we were saying is that date of 2030, they're really pushing, trying to get us sort
it.
of
Yeah,
corralled into the AI by then, because at that point, all our DNA is going to turn on, all of our brain cells, like we're going to be so expansive from there on that it won't be easy to tempt us into this. So these next 5 years are so pivotal for us to just slow down this long enough that we catch up and surpass it, right? Like
yeah,
we're going to surpass this, but you have to slow it down. Put all the spanners in the works so that it doesn't get going at the speed that they're trying to
yeah.
like put it
And
out.
I think, no,
Yeah. So
sorry,
tell
I
us,
forget.
David, how do we throw those spanners in? What are those spanners?
Well, I'll get into into the AI stuff a bit more, but I just want to add a bit more to what you were saying. And I think it's like, well, people that's like watching John Claude on Beyond Mystic and Cliff High. Cliff High has pretty much stated what you're saying. It's like eventually human intuition is going to take over, and that's what this war is between. Is between artificial intelligence and human intuition. Okay, so that could be like, and what we're looking at here is the divine feminine with intuition, and the divine masculine wisdom with AI, which can possibly be a good thing, but because this artificial intelligence is not tied directly to the consciousness stream, which underpins our reality, it's not going to win because it doesn't have the direct connection that we have with our own bodies, and that's what the health epidemic of it's like of a few years ago was really all about. It's about shutting that down. A lot of people that took the shot, it's like there was recently been autopsies on those people. Their pituitary gland is completely shriveled up. So they've lost that connection to consciousness because of that. There are ways if you have taken the shot to.
I don't know that that's happened. I don't know that that's happened to all of them, but at least that's more like, unfortunately, there's more of a possibility.
But also, it's important to know that's like that can be reversed.
Yes, it can.
It's like Janine pulled some cards in that on Beyond Mystica a few days ago, and what she said was, yes, it can be reversed, but in order to restore that connection, you also have to be starting to finally ask questions.
Yeah.
If you're not interested in doing your own research, then it's not going to work.
Now, David, we're at 41 minutes.
Yeah. So I don't think we're going to be able to get everything like what.
No, definitely not.
What I'll do is I'll try to finish off
go on and do a part 3 and maybe even a part 4.
Well,
so
what I'd like to do, I'd just like to just quickly finish off the overview of how AI trains itself. Okay. So we're talking about large language models, okay, and that's like everything that's out there. That's what I mean by large language model. It tries to train itself on everything that it can get its hands on. There's a couple of other language models that we need to talk about, and I'll try to be brief, and then we'll wrap it up after that. So there's something called a domain language model, okay, and that's an artificial intelligence that's confined to a domain. And what they mean by a domain, it could be a multinational company like McDonald's or Kentucky Fried Chicken, for example, and that domain is just only allowed to work within the confines of that company. So be able to like look at information at branch offices around the world, and let's just say I'm working within that company, and I want to send an email to the CEO, and I want to include the annual report. I can just tell the AI send an email to the CEO with the annual report, and it's like and also write a brief summary on why I think we need to make some changes to it. Okay, so the AI can do all of that for us, but it's not going to be getting any information about this from outside of the organization. It's going to look at all the file storage within the organization and all the computers, find the annual report. It's going to look in the email list to see what the address is for the CEO, and then from all the information that it has, it's going to write that report that I asked it to write, and it's going to send it off. But it's not getting any information from outside of the organization.
Mm-hmm. What is that one called? What's that?
Domain language model.
Domain language model. Okay, great.
Okay, so that's a more restricted version of AI than the large language model.
Okay.
And then after that, we have an even more restricted language model, again called a local language model. Okay, and that a local language model, maybe one way to look at that is like, let's just say there's an international publishing house that has a whole bunch of authors on their books. It's like that will be working under a domain artificial intelligence language model. But the authors themselves would be, if they're running AI, they could be running a local language model which only exists on their personal home computer, and maybe might extend as far as their personal home network, but it doesn't go outside of that. Now that local language model can deny access or grant access to a domain model or a large language model to see what it has on its own system, and that local language model only looks at stuff within that home computer or maybe that home network. So let's just say I'm asking a question. It's like to the AI. I could be telling the AI, it's like, I've got 20 books here. I want you to send my 3 bestsellers to the publisher and tell the publisher that if a large language model AI wants to publish those books or gather information from those books, it can do so, but it has to pay a fee of X amount of dollars. All right. So that's an example of how a local language model can interact with a domain language model, and that domain language model can interact with a large language model. So that large language model could contact the publisher and it's like, look, I need a whole bunch of non-fiction books on how to grow lettuce. Okay, and I have some of the world's most popular books on how to grow lettuce. And through my local language model, I grant access to the domain language model to only grab those particular books. And the domain language model grants access to the large language model to be able to use those books to be able to train itself and to answer prompts. But it has to do so for a fee. So that's an example of how AI could work. We haven't gone into the next stage, which we'll get into the next video, which is how we can improve that even further with confidential computing and confidential AI. And once again, it's like we'll be getting into the whole idea of security by design as opposed to policy. So it's like it's secure by design, which means it's engineered in such a way I can't even see the data even if I wanted to, as opposed to policy where I just have a legal policy saying, oh, I promise not to look at it. Okay, and you just got to hope that I don't.
So I have a question, David. Let's say we have, what you called it, the local language model, which would be maybe if I was an author, I would have that on my own system, and could keep technically AI out of that other, like the large language models and the other domain or whatever. But what happens when my work is purchased by someone? What happens if they put it up on public domains?
Yeah, well, that's an issue as well. If they put it up in the public domain, then it's like there's already infrastructure in place where it's like authors and content creators in general can trawl the internet for people that are actually doing that, and under what's called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, they can force the website that's hosting that information to take that information down.
So basically, if you wanted to be an author or the creator of some kind of content, whatever it may be, you'd have to have a local language model AI. And then when you sold your content or whatever
I'll just give you an example of how it can ethically work. Right now, it's not set up that way. Okay, there's no real frameworks in place. There's no guardrails in place to stop Microsoft's Copilot AI, for example, to be able to look at whatever you want and send that information back to Microsoft to do whatever it wants with it. So I guess what I should point out here is that's how it should work. That's not how it currently works.
Okay.
Okay, and there's also another issue with how the computer hardware itself works, and that's where confidential computing comes in, and that makes the whole situation even safer than just having that type of framework that I'm talking about. Okay, because that would have to be what we're talking about in that situation is a completely voluntary framework where the large language model voluntarily decides not to steal the author's information, and the domain language model voluntarily decides not to give that information away without the local language model's author's consent.
Okay. Wow. So, this is so helpful, because if we don't know how this stuff works, we don't know how to advocate to have it work in our favor.
That's exactly right.
It's like, and I just think about, like, as you said, artists and musicians and so many creators, content creators, teachers, writers, you name it, like storytellers, even, like, even people writing fiction or whatever. Like, what's to stop AI from going in and taking all these snippets if someone gives it the right prompts and creating a whole fictional story based on
the problem, and that's why one of the lead engineers at OpenAI. Well, they say he committed suicide, and that could possibly be true, but it's quite convenient that he's no longer able to blow the whistle on this breach of copyright issue that AI has.
Yeah. So
it's very convenient.
Like, you've opened
And
my eyes. I mean, I was already, I have to say, being a longtime truther, I'm somewhat suspicious. And I've always been a little bit like, oh, I don't know about a lot of these things. And now, what I'm hearing you say is this is the moment for us to stand up and go, oh, actually, we know what you're talking about. We know what these words mean. We know what a large language model is, and all that you've just told us.
Language model and a local language model.
Yeah, and we actually have an opinion about how we want this done. And if enough of us say, yeah, we're not going to agree to this, and we're going to stop you from putting legislation in the big beautiful bill that says none of this can be challenged indefinitely. AI has free reign over everything. No way.
So, and I think that, and it just makes me, it's just really concerning to me, like when you're hiding information like that, usually you have a good reason to hide that information. And what's concerning to me is the fact that Grok AI has already been deployed within, within the federal government. I might just share some more tabs here. So just put that screen share up quickly, and we'll wrap it up in a minute or two, because I really feel like this is going to be enough for our audience today.
Yeah, I think so.
So just showing some proof here that no, I'm not making this stuff up. It's publicly known that this has happened, and Grok has already been deployed inside of the US federal government. And I'll share this tab. Okay, a lot of this is mainstream media, and they're obviously very anti-Trump, so they're mostly, it's like not looking for anything negative to say, but it's just concerning to me that this is happening, and there's no oversight.
I think there's another consideration for us in the truther community to say, okay, yeah, mainstream media may be putting a spin on this and really just scouring for stuff to, turn people off. But we also can't just sit on the opposite side of that fence and go, oh yeah, everything over there is great. Like, I have always felt like whatever the maneuvers are that are happening on the higher levels, let's just say we are being monitored in terms of like, how easily are we just giving our power away again and again and again and again and again?
And that's exactly right. Yeah. And just one other thing I'd like to add as well, this bill, sections A and B, talk about how AI is going to be deployed within federal government departments. And that's another thing Grok's most probably definitely doing is trying to figure out ways that it can deploy itself in each individual department and automate all the functionality of it. So could get to the point where it's like, you're trying to interact with a federal government department in the US, and you're not talking to a human anymore. You're talking to an AI, and the AI is like the judge, jury, and the executioner. And if you have a problem, then there might not be any way to say, hey, that's not right. It's like I didn't actually do what they are saying that I did, or whatever. Or it's like, oh, you're charging too much, and you should be charging this. It might be like how Silicon Valley is being run now, which is quite concerning. It's like there's no humans to talk to. You try to put a dispute on PayPal, for example, and it's up to the automated system to decide whether it wants to help in that situation. It's very, very rare that you actually get to speak to a human.
Yeah.
Get help.
Yeah. Wow. Right. So we've just opened up so many cans of worms. And I promise you, we won't leave them like that. We will start going through and figuring out ways to close them all up again.
So there is good news coming up. There is ways that AI can be brought under control with confidential computing, confidential AI. Even if there's no legislation put in place, that's still going to make the whole issue with AI a lot more friendly, for lack of a better word.
Well, and this is something we can all take personal responsibility for. We don't have to wait for other larger governing bodies to take the initiative to prevent these security issues. We can start taking that initiative ourselves. And
that's what we need to do with everything, Ashala. It's like we need to start doing research into our health, our finances, and we need to do some research into how we're using our digital infrastructure. And we need to take back our sovereignty and just disengage ourselves from it's like big tech and big government as much as possible. And confidential computing will help a lot. Will help a lot with that.
Yeah, absolutely, David. Well, we're off to a great start here. We have a little small audience, but thanks for hanging in here with us, folks. And please hit the like button. Jump on and give us your comments if you're watching the replay. Let us know where you'd like us, if you've got any other questions you want us to bring into the next chat. I feel like there's going to be at least 2 more, maybe 3. And we're just going to keep going along with this and building some momentum so we have a sense of what's going on. The incredible, I think it's actually, I don't see it as being so scary. I see it as being actually an amazing crossroads kind of jumping up point that we're at. And if we get engaged now in this next few weeks, months, years, we could actually harness this and take it in a beautiful direction. So,
and as DeFi says, it's like we're all getting, well, a lot of the normies in particular getting slapped in the face with a mackerel. And it's like that's happening to us that are awake as well to a certain extent, and really what the universe is trying to tell us is, this is where the way things could go if you don't start taking responsibility for your own life and your own digital sovereignty, your health, your finances, your spirit, etc.
Totally. Thank you so much, David. Thank you for guiding us along this journey with your your language, your definitions, your background, your experience. I really, really appreciate it.
I hope, so a bit of education goes a long way, and hopefully people have learned a lot from today. And there's going to be even more interesting stuff coming up in part 3, and I think there's going to have to be a part 4 as well.
Definitely. Have a beautiful day, week, time ahead, everybody, and we'll see you here again real soon. Bye for now.